Welcome to History to Relax. This is the place where you can set your worries aside, breathe deeply, and let your mind drift into the past. Tonight, we will walk in the sandals of a Roman legionary. We will feel the weight of the shield pressed against the arm, the sting of the vine staff when discipline falters, and the endless miles of stone roads stretching before weary feet. We will enter the camps built each night like clockwork, hear the rattle of dice by the fire, and taste the grain and bread that fueled the empire's armies. This will not be the story of emperors, generals, or marble monuments. It will be the story of the ordinary soldier, the man who marched, who fought, who bled, and who dreamed of land, coin, and peace at the end of his long years of service. It is a story of brotherhood and rivalry, of discipline and endurance, of wounds carried both on the body and in the heart. So, sit back. Let the day's noise fade away. Close your eyes, if you wish, and imagine yourself in the line of the legion, shield in hand, sword at your side, the eagle standard gleaming above. If you enjoy this journey, please remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. It helps us grow, and it lets us bring you more stories of the past, told slowly and gently, for rest and reflection. Now, let us begin the long march, and discover together what it was truly like to be a Roman legionary. Part 1. The Call to Arms. The morning begins quietly, as so many mornings had before. The sun lifts itself slowly over the hills, pouring soft light across the fields. The sound of roosters, of carts being pulled along worn tracks, of hammers echoing faintly from the blacksmith shop, all of it feels ordinary, familiar. For most young men of the provinces or of Italy, life is steady and simple. There is the land to till, the market to visit, the family to provide for. Yet beneath that quiet routine, the presence of Rome is always felt. Its coins pass through every hand, its laws are spoken in every town square, its soldiers march across the roads that stretch farther than the eye can see. Rome is not just a city, it is an idea, and every man grows up knowing that at some point, Rome may call upon him. The call comes in different ways. For some, it is the steady voice of an officer sent into the countryside, promising pay and steady rations for those willing to step forward. For others, it is the urging of neighbors or relatives who speak of the honor of serving Rome, of wearing the armor, of being more than just a farmer bound to the soil. And for some, it is desperation, hunger in a poor household, debts owed, or the wish to rise higher than the station one was born into. Rome's legions need bodies, and there is always a reason to take the oath. On this day, a group of recruits gathers in the square. Some are little more than boys, faces smooth and eyes wide with uncertainty. Others are older, hardened by years of labor, their arms strong from lifting plows or tools. They all know that life is about to change, though none can be certain of how much. The Centurion who addresses them stands tall and weathered, a man who has carried scars from battles across the provinces. His armor shines with care, but his voice is rough, like stone grinding against stone. He tells them of the oath they will soon swear, the sacramentum. It is not a small promise. To swear loyalty to Rome means binding your life to the empire. It means obedience to the generals, to the emperor himself, and to the men who command each march, each strike of the sword. To break that oath is death, not only in punishment but in dishonor that lingers beyond the grave. Yet to take it is to join a brotherhood that stretches farther than the eye can see, across seas and deserts, through forests and mountains. A legionary belongs to something larger than himself. As the recruits step forward, each one raises his right hand. The words are spoken, not in whispers but in firm voices that carry through the square. They swear never to abandon their standard, never to flee from battle, never to betray Rome. It is a ritual older than any man alive, repeated countless times in countless places, and yet each time it feels as if it binds the Empire together anew. The moment the words are spoken, the transformation begins. These men are no longer just sons, brothers, farmers, or craftsmen. They are soldiers of Rome. The reality of what lies ahead does not yet rest fully on their shoulders. For now, there is only the excitement of the unknown. Some smile with pride, puffing their chests as if they already feel the weight of armor. Others glance nervously at the men beside them, searching for reassurance in faces just as uncertain as their own. Bonds begin here, in these small, shared moments of fear and anticipation. Later, on long marches or in the heat of battle, those bonds will be the difference between life and death. That evening, before they depart for training, many return home one last time. The scent of baking bread, the embrace of a mother, the quiet nod of a father, the soft tears of a wife or sister, all of it becomes sharper, heavier, because they know it may be years before they return. Some may never return at all. The road of the Legionary is long and paved with hardship. But Rome has promised them pay, rations, and perhaps land at the end of it all. For men born with little, that promise glitters brighter than any jewel. The recruits gather their few belongings. A blanket, perhaps a small charm or token, maybe a wax tablet for letters if they are literate. The rest will be provided by Rome, or taken by Rome, depending on how one looks at it. They march away from the familiar streets, boots striking dust into the air, the sound of their footsteps mingling into one. Behind them, families watch in silence. Ahead of them lies the endless road. The first night on that road is restless. They sleep under the open sky, packed together for warmth, with little comfort but the knowledge that they are not alone. The stars above are ancient and indifferent, shining the same way they had over countless other recruits. Some men whisper quietly of fears they cannot name. Others dream of glory, of triumphs carved into marble, of parades through the heart of Rome. But when dawn breaks, those dreams scatter like mist. The reality of training, of discipline, of endless orders, awaits them. Yet in this first step, this call to arms, everything begins. From now on, their lives are no longer their own. They belong to Rome, to the standards they swore never to abandon, to the legion whose ranks they now fill. And though none of them can see the future, one truth is certain. To be a Roman legionary is to walk a path of hardship, of endurance, of loyalty, and of fire. The call has been answered. The journey has begun. Part 2. Training the Body and Mind. The recruits arrive at the training ground, dusty and wide beneath the rising sun. It is not the polished marble of Rome, nor the shaded streets of a town. It is an open field bordered by rough wooden posts, with barracks and sheds lining the edge. Here, men are not shaped by comfort or words, but by sweat, bruises, and repetition. The Centurions wait for them, standing still with the weight of experience, faces scarred by past campaigns. They are not here to inspire. They are here to break down what is soft and to build up what is strong. From the first day, discipline is the air the recruits breathe. Orders are shouted with no time for hesitation. Move too slowly, and a blow from a vine staff cuts across the back. Step out of line, and the punishment is swift and public. Rome's legions cannot afford weakness. A single man breaking formation in battle can endanger 100 others. So training is harsh, not for cruelty's sake, but for survival. The recruits learn to march before they learn to fight. Step after step, mile after mile, they carry their burdens across dirt, stone, and gravel roads. Each man shoulders a pack weighing nearly as much as his own body, filled with tools, rations, a cloak, and equipment. The Centurions call them muli morioni, the mules of Marius, for it was the general Gaius Marius who long ago reformed the army, teaching soldiers to carry their own loads. The nickname is not kind, but it is accurate. A legionary must endure the road as much as he endures the battlefield. Weapons practice begins with wooden swords and wicker shields, heavier than the real ones they will one day use. The idea is simple. If a man can swing and block with tools that strain his arms, then the true sword and shield will feel lighter in battle. Hour after hour, they strike against posts driven into the earth, called pila muralia. Each blow must land with precision, with force, with control. A gladius is not meant for wild slashes but for quick, lethal thrusts. The centurions remind them again and again. It is not the man who swings hardest who lives, but the man who thrusts straight and steady. Javelin practice follows. The pilum, Rome's throwing spear, is crafted to bend upon impact so that enemies cannot hurl it back. But before recruits are trusted with the real weapon, they hurl weighted wooden poles across the field until their shoulders ache. The rhythm is drilled into them: advance, plant, throw, recover, shield high. Again and again, until the movement is no longer thought but instinct. Drills do not end with weapons. They dig ditches, cut timber, raise palisades, and tear them down again. A legionary is not only a fighter but a builder. Wherever Rome marches, Rome leaves behind roads, bridges, and fortified camps. Every evening, no matter how weary the march, the soldiers must raise walls around their camp. So the recruits practice until their hands blister, learning to wield spades and picks as skillfully as swords. Food is plain, given not for taste but for fuel. Grain rations are measured carefully, boiled into porridge or baked into rough bread. Meat is rare, often reserved for special days or when livestock can be taken from nearby villages. The recruits complain at first, longing for the richer meals of home. But hunger silences complaints quickly. The centurions remind them that Rome does not feed them for pleasure. Rome feeds them to fight. Discipline is sharpened by punishment. A man who fails to keep pace on the march is beaten by his comrades at the centurion's command. A man who falls asleep on watch may be executed, for a single careless guard endangers the entire legion. The harshest punishment is decimation. When an entire unit disgraces itself, every 10th man is chosen by lot and beaten to death by the others. It is a rare penalty, but the threat of it lingers like a shadow. Each recruit knows that his mistakes do not only bring suffering to himself but to the men beside him. Yet through the hardship, something begins to grow. Muscles harden, back straighten, lungs grow strong. The endless marches no longer break them but shape them. The sword no longer feels foreign in the hand but becomes an extension of the arm. The shield no longer feels like a burden but like protection, as familiar as one's own skin. And among the recruits, bonds form as naturally as breath. They suffer together, they laugh together, they curse the centurions together. In the dirt and sweat of the training field, brotherhood takes root. At night, after drills are done and the fires burn low, they share stories. Some speak of homes far away, of families waiting, of wives they hope to see again. Others speak of dreams, of parades in Rome, of silver coins shining in the hand, of land granted at retirement where they will build farms of their own. A few are silent, staring into the flames, carrying fears they do not voice. But whether loud or quiet, each man begins to understand. Alone, he is nothing. Together, he is a legionary. Weeks turn into months. The training does not soften. The centurions do not grow gentler. But the recruits change. Their steps fall into rhythm without thought. Their shields lock together in neat lines. Their voices echo as one when commands are shouted. They are no longer a collection of farmers, craftsmen, and wanderers. They are soldiers of Rome, and Rome is written into their bones. When the time comes, the Centurion calls them into formation. His voice carries across the field, steady and commanding. He tells them they are ready. The words are simple, but they strike with weight. They have survived the fire of training, and though harder trials await, they have been shaped into tools sharp enough for Rome's hand. The recruits, no, the soldiers, stand taller than they did before. Their faces are still young, their hearts still beat with fear, but their bodies now carry the strength to endure. The path ahead will test them in ways they cannot yet imagine. But training has done what it was meant to do. It has prepared them to face the unknown. And so, as the sun dips low and the shadows stretch across the training ground, the legionaries march forward. Their journey has only begun, but already they are changed. The body has been hardened. The mind has been disciplined. The spirit has been bound to Rome. The legion is ready to move. Part 3. March of the Legion. The day begins before the sun has fully risen. A horn call splits the cool air, low and steady, pulling men from their sleep. Fires are stamped out, cloaks rolled, and packs strapped across tired shoulders. There is no luxury of a slow waking. A legion moves as one, and no man can afford to fall behind. The march is the heartbeat of Rome's power. For the legions to conquer, they must move swiftly and carry their strength with them. And so each soldier shoulders the full burden of his kit. Nearly 40 kilograms of weight presses down, armor strapped across the chest, the heavy curved shield slung over the back, the short sword and dagger at the hip, the 2 javelins carried in hand, and the wooden frame of tools lashed together like a yoke across the shoulders. In that frame are iron stakes for fortifications, cooking pots, rations of grain, spare sandals, and personal belongings. The recruits once groaned under such loads, but now they move with the practiced endurance beaten into them by months of training. The line stretches long and unbroken across the countryside. At its head, standards rise high, the eagle of the legion glinting in the morning light, silver and gold reflecting like fire. Drums and horns sound the pace, steady and relentless. The earth trembles beneath thousands of synchronized steps. To villagers who watch from the roadside, it is a sight both fearsome and awe-inspiring. An iron tide flowing across their land, unstoppable and endless. Each day's march is measured not in minutes but in miles. 15, 20, sometimes more, depending on the orders of the commanders. The sun beats down in summer, sweat-soaking tunics until they cling like second skins. In winter, breath clouds in the air and frost stiffens sandals. The roads, the lifelines of Rome, are straight and unyielding, stretching over hills, cutting through forests, bridging rivers. A legionary learns that the road is both his ally and his enemy. The march is not silent. The scrape of hobnailed sandals against stone, the clatter of equipment, the grunts of men adjusting loads, all blend into a constant rhythm. Some hum simple tunes under their breath, old songs from their villages. Others mutter curses at the stones that bruise their feet or the dust that stings their eyes. The centurions walk among them, vine staffs in hand, ensuring that no gap opens, no man lags. Order must be kept, for a disordered march is a march that invites ambush. At midday, the horn calls again. The column halts, shields are lowered, and men sink gratefully to the ground. Grain is chewed dry or boiled quickly if time allows. Water skins are passed hand to hand. The break is short, never long enough for true rest, and soon the horn sounds once more. Packs are heaved onto aching shoulders, and the road stretches out again. By evening, when the sun dips low and the light softens, the legion has reached its destination for the night. But rest is not the first reward. Before a man may eat or sleep, the camp must rise. Each soldier knows his role. Stakes are driven into the ground, trenches cut with sharp spades, earth piled high to form walls. Gates are marked, watchtowers raised, tents pitched in perfect order. The camp is not thrown together at random but laid out with the precision of a city. Commander's tent at the center, standards guarded with care, streets running straight between rows of leather tents. It is a ritual as important as any battle drill, for the camp is both shield and home. Even in enemy lands, Rome carries a fortress wherever it goes. Only when the camp stands does the legionary find rest. Fires spark to life, pots bubble with thin porridge, bread is broken and shared. The men sit in small circles, shoulders hunched, voices low with fatigue. Some gamble with knucklebones, hoping to pass the long hours with small wagers. Others mend sandals, stitch torn cloaks, or sharpen blades. Letters are written by firelight, scratched onto wax tablets for messengers to carry when they can. Laughter mingles with weary sighs, and for a brief while, the march feels far away. But always, the camp is alive with duty. Guards pace the walls, eyes scanning the dark beyond the ditches. Centurions check the lines, ensuring no tent is pitched out of order, no weapon left neglected. Punishments are dealt swiftly if mistakes are found. A man caught sleeping on watch may never wake again, for the safety of thousands rests on the vigilance of each individual. The nights are short. Before dawn, the horn will sound once more, and the march will begin again. A legionary learns that the road does not end, that each day bleeds into the next in a cycle of movement, labor, and vigilance. Yet through that cycle, the men grow hardened. Feet blister, shoulders ache, but endurance becomes second nature. What once seemed impossible becomes routine. On the march, bonds deepen. A man learns who will share water when the sun burns hottest, who will lift his pack when he stumbles, who will stand beside him when danger comes. These small acts of trust, repeated day after day, weave the legion into a single body. Alone, each soldier is a mule burdened by weight. Together, they are a machine of war. And so the march continues, through valleys and over mountains, across rivers and deserts. Rome advances not only by battles won but by miles endured. For the enemies of the empire, the sound of hobnailed sandals on the road is a warning. For the men within the ranks, it is a reminder of the life they have chosen, a life of endless roads, endless labor, and endless loyalty. When a legionary closes his eyes at night, the rhythm of the march still beats in his ears. Step after step, mile after mile, carrying the weight of Rome on his shoulders. This is his duty. This is his life. Part 4. Life inside the camp. When the long march ends and the sun has dropped low, the legionary's day does not simply close. Instead, it shifts into a new rhythm. The camp, that ever-present fortress carried on men's shoulders, must rise from bare earth each night. For a legionary, the camp is more than a place of sleep. It is safety, order, and a reflection of Rome's discipline. The work begins the moment the horn sounds the halt. Tents are not thrown up at random, nor are fires lit until the walls are secure. Each man knows his role. Some drive wooden stakes deep into the soil to form the outer palisade. Others cut ditches, throwing earth outward to make embankments. Still others sharpen stakes and line them along the edges, creating a barrier of teeth pointing toward the dark. The sound of picks and shovels fills the dusk, steady scraping, the thud of iron against stone, the grunts of men forcing order upon wilderness. The camp takes shape quickly, as if by instinct. Rows of tents stretch in perfect lines, forming streets that all lead toward the center. At that heart, the commander's tent is raised, larger, heavier, marked by banners and guarded by chosen men. Nearby, the sacred standards are placed with reverence. The eagle of the legion gleams in the torchlight, never left unguarded, for it is not simply metal but the soul of the army. Around it, silence hangs heavier, as if even the noise of labor dares not disturb the symbol of Rome. Once the defenses stand and the order is set, the men may turn to the smaller comforts of the evening. Fires crackle to life, smoke curling into the cooling air. Pots are filled with grain, lentils, or whatever provisions the march has allowed. The meal is plain, porridge thickened with water, a loaf of coarse bread, perhaps a strip of bacon or cheese if fortune is kind. The smell drifts across the camp, not rich but steady, filling hungry bellies with the promise of strength for the next day's march. The tents are cramped, made of heavy leather, each one shared by 8 men. Inside, shields are stacked neatly, swords and javelins laid close at hand. Cloaks are spread for bedding, though the earth beneath remains hard. Space is tight, and privacy is none. Yet within those confines grows the closeness of comradeship. These 8 men eat together, march together, fight together, and, if need be, die together. They are bound by routine and by necessity. Evenings bring a mix of duties and diversions. Some men mend their sandals, sewing hobnails back into worn soles, for a broken sandal can cripple a march. Others polish armor, rubbing away rust with oil and cloth, keeping the iron gleaming even under harsh conditions. Blades are sharpened on whetstones until they catch the firelight like teeth. These tasks, though mundane, are as vital as drills, for a dull sword or a loose strap can mean death when the time for battle comes. Around the fires, laughter begins to mingle with the crackle of flames. Dice rattle in the dirt, wagers of coins or rations placed with quick grins and muttered curses. Games of chance bring out both joy and rivalry, but the Centurions watch closely, ready to step in if tempers flare too high. Some men tell stories of their homes, of vineyards in Italy, of fields in Gaul, of markets in Africa. Others boast of battles they have heard of, victories retold until they shine like legend. A few remain silent, eyes fixed on the flames, their thoughts wandering far from the camp. Religion is never absent. Small altars are built of stones, and offerings are made, a libation of wine poured onto the ground, a prayer whispered to Mars, to Jupiter, to Fortuna. Soldiers carry charms and amulets, tokens against the dangers of war. The gods are called upon often, for every man knows how fragile life can be when the trumpet sounds and battle begins. The presence of the divine offers comfort, even if only in the whisper of smoke curling upward to the stars. Discipline, however, never loosens its grip. Watches are assigned, and men take turns patrolling the walls or standing guard at the gates. A camp may look secure, but enemies move in shadows, and danger can come silently. To fall asleep on watch is the gravest sin a soldier can commit, punished without mercy. So the guards pace slowly, eyes sharp, weapons ready, the night stretching long and heavy around them. For those not on watch, sleep comes quickly. The body, worn by marching and labor, finds rest even on hard earth. Dreams drift between memories of home and fears of what lies ahead. The snoring of one man becomes the lullaby of another, blending into the chorus of the camp. Outside, the fires burn low, the guards keep their posts, and the camp stands like an island of order in the sea of darkness. Morning will come too soon, heralded by the horn, and the entire cycle will begin again. But in the quiet hours between dusk and dawn, the camp becomes more than just a fortress. It is a place where bonds are tied, where stories are shared, where the ordinary rhythm of life beats within the extraordinary demands of war. For the legionary, the camp is not only where he rests, it is where he belongs. Part 5. The Tools of War. A legionary is more than flesh and bone. He is iron and leather, wood and bronze, woven together into a single machine of war. His tools are not merely objects but extensions of himself, each one designed with purpose, refined by centuries of conflict, and carried across endless roads. To understand a legionary, one must understand what he carries, for the weight of Rome rests not only on his shoulders but in the weapons and armor strapped to his body. The first and most essential is the gladius, the short sword of Rome. Barely 2 feet in length, its double-edged blade gleams with lethal simplicity. Unlike the long slashing swords of other peoples, the gladius is made for thrusting, for striking close in the press of battle. Its point is sharp enough to pierce through gaps in armor, its edges keen enough to slice when needed. In training, recruits learn again and again that victory is not found in wild swings but in quick, controlled thrusts. A man who thrusts steadily survives, a man who flails wildly dies. The gladius is not a weapon of show but of efficiency, a tool of silent, relentless death. Carried at the side of the gladius is the pugio, a dagger of simple design. It serves both as a weapon of last resort and as a tool for daily tasks, cutting food, trimming wood, prying loose nails. Small but dependable, it is never far from reach. Many soldiers decorate their pugios with engraved hilts or small carvings, personal touches on an otherwise uniform kit. The shield, the scutum, towers larger than most expect. Curved to wrap around the body, it rises nearly to the shoulder when set upon the ground. Its frame is wood, faced with leather or canvas, rimmed with iron. At its center sits the umbo, a rounded boss of iron that can deflect blows or strike forward like a hammer. Heavy in the arm, it is both burden and protection. A legionary learns to trust his scutum as he trusts his own heartbeat. Alone, it shields one man. Locked together in formation, dozens of scuta form walls of iron, impenetrable and unyielding. Then there are the pila, the javelins that Rome casts before its charge. Each one is nearly 7 feet long, with a slender iron shank fixed into a wooden shaft. When thrown, its heavy weight pierces shields and armor alike. Yet its design ensures that after striking, the shank bends, making the weapon useless to the enemy. A storm of pila can shatter an advancing line, breaking shields, slowing feet, and opening gaps into which the legion may thrust with gladi. For a legionary, the pilum is the first greeting given to his foes, a rain of iron that softens resistance before the final clash. Armor binds the body in layers of defense. The most familiar is the larica segmentata, bands of iron curved around the chest and shoulders, fastened by leather straps and brass fittings. Its plates gleam when polished, a sign of Rome's wealth and order. But not all soldiers wear it. Some bear chainmail, the larica hamata, thousands of tiny rings linked together, heavy but flexible. Others wear scale armor, the larica squamata, overlapping metal plates sewn onto a backing, shimmering like the hide of a fish. Whatever form it takes, the armor is meant to turn aside the slash of a sword, to absorb the thrust of a spear, to keep the man beneath alive long enough to strike back. Upon the head rests the galea, the helmet of the legionary. Its iron cap is fitted with cheek guards, a neck guard, and sometimes a brow ridge. From beneath it, the world is framed in narrow lines, vision restricted but focused. The clang of metal against galea rings sharp in the ears, yet without it, a man is naked before the chaos of battle. Some helmets bear crests, transverse plumes of horsehair or feathers, marking centurions or officers. For the common soldier, the galea is plain, but to him it is as vital as breath. Sandals, the caligae, are deceptively simple. Straps of leather bind the foot, while hobnails hammered into the soles bite into the earth. They are not soft, nor are they forgiving, but they endure. Day after day, mile after mile, Caligae carry the legion across the world. Blisters are common, nails wear down, straps snap, but the design is so practical that soldiers can repair them easily with what they carry. More than any weapon, the Caligae shape the reach of Rome, for without them, the roads would swallow men long before battle begins. Beyond weapons and armor, there are the tools of survival. Each soldier carries stakes for fortifications, a pickaxe or spade for digging, a cloak for warmth, a pot for cooking. These humble items weigh as heavily as sword or shield, for Rome expects every soldier not only to fight but to build, to dig, to labor. A legionary is as much an engineer as a warrior, carrying the means to raise a camp, bridge a river, or cut a road. The pack itself becomes part of the man. Lashed to a wooden frame, it balances across his shoulders, the straps biting into flesh until calluses form. Within it are rations of grain, dried fruit, strips of salted meat, and water skins. A soldier may march hungry, but he does not march empty-handed. Rome ensures that he carries his own burden, so that the legion as a whole never falters for lack of supply. Taken together, these tools define the legionary. They weigh him down, press into his muscles, and leave marks on his skin. Yet they also make him formidable. With his gladius, he strikes. With his scutum, he shields. With his pilum, he wounds from afar. With his armor and helmet, he endures. With his sandals and pack, he marches farther than his enemies believe possible. And with his spade and stake, he builds Rome wherever he stands. At night, when he removes his armor and lays down his weapons, the soldier feels the ache of their absence. His shoulders, bare without straps, seem strangely light. His arm, unburdened by the shield, seems incomplete. In those moments, he knows that he and his tools are no longer separate. They are one. To strip a man of them is to strip him of his identity. To place them in his hands is to make him a legionary. And so, when dawn comes and the horn sounds, he straps them on once more. The weight settles against him like an old companion. The tools of war become not just things he carries, but the very shape of his life. Part 6. In the Shadow of the Centurion. Every legionary knows the shape of authority. It is not carved in marble or spoken in grand speeches. It is carried in the gait of the centurion, in the sharp glance of his eyes, in the steady weight of the vine staff clenched in his fist. To march beneath the eagle of Rome is to march beneath the gaze of such men, whose voices carry farther than trumpets and whose discipline binds the legion more tightly than any wall of stone. The centurion is more than an officer. He is the living spine of the legion. Beneath him stretch rows upon rows of soldiers, each assigned to a centuria, a unit of roughly 80 men, though its name still recalls the 100 it once contained. Above him stand the tribunes and legates, men of wealth and rank who command with authority but often from a distance. The centurion, however, lives among his men. He shares their marches, their camps, their battles. His tent is close enough that his shadow stretches across theirs, and his presence is inescapable. His armor marks him as distinct. While the common soldier wears plain iron, the centurion's kit carries signs of rank. His helmet bears a crest, often set crosswise, so that even in the chaos of battle, his men can see him. His chest is guarded not only by plates or chain, but sometimes by ornamented cuirasses, polished bronze gleaming in the sun. On his side hangs not only the gladius but the vine staff, the vitis, symbol of his right to punish and command. That staff strikes faster than any blade when discipline falters. Its sting across the shoulders a reminder that obedience is not optional but absolute. The centurion's voice is a weapon of its own. Harsh, clipped, relentless, it cuts through the din of a march or the roar of combat. With it, He drives order into chaos. One word shouted can shift a formation, can steady men who might otherwise break. Legionaries learn quickly to recognize the tone of their centurion's commands, when to advance, when to halt, when to lock shields tighter and brace for impact. In battle, that voice is the lifeline between survival and ruin. Discipline under the Centurion is unyielding. He punishes lateness, sloppiness, hesitation, and any sign of weakness. To drop a shield in drill earns lashes. To disobey an order invites blows from the vitis. To show cowardice in the face of danger risks death. Yet alongside the harshness lies a strange bond. For the Centurion's authority is not merely enforced by fear, but by example. He stands at the front when formations advance. He holds the line when arrows darken the sky. He bleeds where his men bleed, and sometimes he dies where they fall. This presence commands a respect that no whip could ever demand. Stories ripple through the ranks of centurions who have stood like walls in the thick of battle. Men whisper of scars carved deep across their faces, of eyes clouded but still sharp, of bodies twisted by wounds yet unbroken in will. To follow such a man is to feel steadier, to believe that survival is possible even in the storm of war. A centurion is feared, but he is also relied upon. His very existence is proof that a man can endure the life of the legion and still stand tall. Above the centurions are the higher officers, the tribunes, young men of noble families, often serving more for prestige than survival. The legate, commander of the legion, chosen by the emperor himself. These figures wield great authority, but to the common soldier, they remain distant. It is the centurion whose shadow stretches nearest, whose footsteps echo daily beside theirs. He is the one who ensures that the orders of the distant legate are carried out with precision on the ground. Without him, Rome's commands would wither before reaching the ranks. In the daily rhythm of camp, the centurion is ever present. He inspects weapons, checks armor, ensures that tents are pitched in order and ditches dug to depth. His eye misses nothing. A man might curse him in private, mutter beneath his breath when the staff bites into his shoulders, but he obeys nonetheless. For he knows that the centurion's discipline is not cruelty without cause. It is the thread that binds the legion together, the reason it moves like a single body rather than a scattered mob. At night, when fires burn low and the voices of soldiers fade to murmurs, the centurion remains vigilant. He plans the next day's drills, reviews the orders passed down from above, and ensures that watches are properly set. His rest is as brief as any man's, yet his responsibility weighs far heavier. For in the morning, when the horn sounds, it is he who must take raw weariness and shape it into order once again. To live under the shadow of the centurion is to live in constant tension, fear of his punishment, trust in his strength, resentment of his harshness, respect for his endurance. A soldier may dream of many things, of land, of pay, of survival. But when the moment comes to stand in battle, the first thing he seeks is the figure of his centurion, crest cutting through the smoke, voice calling above the clash. In that presence, the legionary finds both command and courage. And so, in the endless cycle of march and camp, of drill and battle, the centurion's shadow stretches long. For the common soldier, Rome is too vast, too distant to grasp. But the centurion is flesh and blood, near and immediate, shaping each day with his voice and his staff. To serve Rome is to serve beneath his gaze. To live as a legionary is to walk always in his shadow. Part 7. On the Brink of Battle. The march slows. The rhythm that had carried the legion across endless miles falters, replaced by a heavy stillness. Ahead, smoke rises in faint columns from the land, and scouts return with whispers of enemy movement. The centurions pace more sharply, their voices clipped, their eyes narrowed. The ordinary labor of building camp is replaced by something heavier: preparation, tension, the knowledge that the next dawn may bring blood. For the legionary, the hours before battle carry a weight unlike any other. The body knows exhaustion, the back knows the bite of burdens, but the mind now grapples with uncertainty. Every clang of armor, every neigh of a horse, every sharp call from the trumpets seems louder, sharper, more final. Men glance at one another in silence, searching for reassurance in familiar faces. Some grin too widely, laughing too quickly, hiding their fear behind bravado. Others speak little, their hands busy polishing blades already gleaming, tightening straps already fastened, checking and rechecking the fit of shield and helmet. Ritual fills the silence. Offerings are made at hastily raised altars. A splash of wine poured on the ground, a whispered prayer to Mars, to Fortuna, to any god who will listen. Small charms are kissed, talismans gripped tightly as if the divine could be held in the palm. The priests attached to the legion chant blessings, incense curling in the air, the smoke mingling with the dust of the camp. Superstition and faith weave together, offering comfort where certainty cannot be found. The centurions walk the lines, reminding men of drills, of formations, of the strength of the legion. Their voices cut through fear with the steadiness of iron. They do not promise safety, for no man can promise that. Instead, they promise order, that the legion will not break, that the man beside you will not abandon you, that discipline will hold where chaos threatens. In that promise lies strength enough to stand. Meals are taken in silence. The grain porridge tastes the same as it always does, yet every bite feels heavier, as though it may be the last. Some men force down mouthfuls quickly, unwilling to dwell on the thought. Others chew slowly, savoring each taste, committing it to memory. The air hums with the awareness of what tomorrow may bring. At dusk, the standards are planted firmly in the ground, their shadows long in the fading light. The eagle gleams in the glow of torches, a reminder that Rome itself watches. Men gather around it in silence, not daring to touch, but drawing courage from its presence. For as long as the eagle stands, the legion endures. Night falls, but sleep comes fitfully. The ground is no harder than usual, the air no colder, yet rest evades the weary. Thoughts of home drift unbidden, a mother's voice, a wife's embrace, a child's laughter. Each memory sharpens into ache, for tomorrow may sever the chance of return. Dreams, when they come, are vivid, the clash of steel, the scream of horses, the sight of wounds too deep to heal. Men wake in the dark, breath quick, heart pounding, and find only the steady silence of the camp around them. Before dawn, the horns sound. The camp stirs, not with the sluggish rhythm of an ordinary march, but with sharp urgency. Fires are lit, not for comfort, but to harden bread, to warm water, to fuel the body. Armor is strapped on carefully, checked and rechecked. The weight feels different now, no longer the burden of a march, but the shield against death. The gladius is tested in its scabbard, the pilum gripped tightly, the shield raised and lowered in practiced rhythm. Each movement is ritual, a small act of control against the vast uncertainty pressing in. Formations are called. Lines assemble with the precision drilled into them through months and years. Shields lock together, pila are hefted, voices fall silent except for the commands of the centurions. The sun rises slowly, casting its first light over the ordered ranks, glinting on iron helmets, gleaming on polished armor. The field ahead stretches wide, open and waiting. Somewhere beyond the haze, the enemy gathers, their own horns sounding, their own hearts pounding with the same mix of fear and resolve. In that moment, the legionary stands on the threshold. Behind him lies the road, the camp, the drills, the endless labor that has shaped him into this. Before him lies the storm, the clash of shields, the scream of arrows, the blood-soaked soil. He breathes deeply, the smell of dust and iron filling his lungs, and waits for the command. When it comes, it is not shouted in desperation but spoken with certainty. Trumpets blare, drums beat, and the line begins to advance. Each step is steady, measured, controlled. The fear does not vanish, but it is buried beneath discipline, beneath the knowledge that the man beside you marches as you march, that the shield before you rises as yours rises. The brink has passed. The battle begins. Part 8. The Clash of Steel. The ground trembles beneath thousands of feet. The horns blare, echoing across the field, sharp and unrelenting. The sun rises higher, burning away the haze, revealing the enemy massed in the distance. They shout, they wave spears and swords, they beat shields with weapons to rattle courage into their hearts. The noise swells like a storm. Yet within the Roman lines, the rhythm is steady, measured. Shields lock. Feet advance in unison. The order of Rome pushes forward against the chaos of the world. The first command comes sharp. Pilum, ready. Each man hefts his javelin, the wooden shaft heavy in the hand, the long iron shank gleaming in the light. The enemy begins to surge forward, their cries wild and untamed. At the Centurion's shout, arms rise, muscles tense, and with one motion, hundreds of pila cut through the air. The sky darkens with their arc. When they fall, they pierce shields, punch through armor, bend upon impact so they cannot be hurled back. Shields sag under the weight of iron, splintering and dragging down the arms of those who hold them. Gaps open. The momentum falters. Then comes the advance. Shields slam forward in a wall of curved wooden iron, gladi drawn at the ready. The clash is not graceful, not the dance of duelists, but the grind of iron against iron, shield against shield, flesh against blade. A legionary thrusts, not wildly, but with precision, the point of his sword driving into the exposed side of an enemy, pulling back quickly to strike again. Around him, the line holds tight, each man's shield overlapping with the next, the formation a living wall that presses forward inch by inch. The noise is overwhelming. The clash of metal rings sharp, the grunt of effort mixes with the scream of pain, the thunder of thousands of voices shakes the air. Dust rises, choking lungs, stinging eyes. Blood sprays in sharp bursts, slicking the ground beneath sandals, turning earth into mud. Yet the discipline drilled into the legionary holds. He does not swing wildly. He does not break formation. He thrusts, withdraws, shields, advances. Each motion practiced, each strike a lesson lived out in the chaos of war. The centurions move behind the lines, their voices cutting through the din. The vine staff lashes out at any sign of faltering, not from cruelty but necessity. Order must hold, for if one man breaks, the shield wall cracks, and death rushes in like floodwater. So the line steadies, advances, step by bloody step. The enemy shouts grow ragged. Their formations, less ordered, begin to waver. Some charge recklessly, slamming into the shields, only to be met with iron thrusts that pierce their bodies. Others falter, their weapons dragging, fear creeping into their eyes as the Roman wall looms ever closer. But victory is not without cost. Arrows hiss from the sky, striking shields, helmets, flesh. A man beside you cries out, collapses, trampled by the line that cannot stop. Another staggers, his shield slipping, blood running down his leg, yet still he fights, teeth clenched, eyes burning with the need to endure. Each loss is felt but cannot be mourned in the moment. There is only the shield, the sword, the step forward. Time becomes strange in battle. Minutes stretch into eternities. The body moves as if separate from thought, acting on drills burned into muscle. Thrust, shield, step. Thrust, shield, step. The mind narrows, focused only on the man directly before you, on the weapon that threatens, on the small space of survival carved within the storm. And then, slowly, the tide begins to turn. The enemy line wavers more with each advance. Gaps widen, men flee. The sound of their war cries falters, replaced by shouts of panic, by the clash of weapons dropped in haste. The Centurions shout louder, driving their men forward, pressing the advantage. The legion surges, not in wild pursuit but in controlled, relentless advance. The wall of Rome does not rush. It crushes. When the horn sounds again, it is not the call to advance but the command to halt. Discipline holds even in victory. The line steadies, shields raised, gladi ready, for ambushes are always possible, and the legion does not scatter like its foes. Only when the field grows quiet, when the last cries fade into silence, do the Centurions give the order to rest. The aftermath is heavy. The ground is littered with the fallen, friend and foe alike. Shields lie splintered, swords bent, javelins scattered. The stench of blood hangs thick in the air, mingling with sweat and smoke. Legionaries sink to their knees, pulling off helmets, gulping air as if they have been drowning. Hands shake, arms ache, wounds throb. Some men weep quietly, others laugh too loudly, all carried by the same flood of relief. They have survived. The dead are gathered, comrades carried gently from the field, their bodies laid together with care. Prayers are whispered, names spoken, though not all can be remembered. For every man who falls, another takes his place, and the legion marches on. The enemy dead are left where they lie or piled high in grim reminders of Rome's power. As night falls, the camp is raised once more, the routine carried out even in the shadow of battle. Fires burn, food is prepared, armor is mended. The legionary eats with trembling hands, the taste of grain porridge dulled by the memory of blood. He lies down to rest, but sleep comes fitfully, dreams filled with the clash and the cries. Yet when dawn comes, he will rise again, strap on his armor, and take up his place in the line. For this is the life of a Roman soldier. Battle is not a rare storm but the weather of his existence. The clash of steel is his world, and within it, he endures. Part 9. The Siege Engine. Battle in the open field is chaos contained by discipline. A siege, however, is something different. Slower, heavier, more grinding. It is not a storm that erupts and then fades but a weight that presses day after day, wearing down both attacker and defender alike. For the legionary, the siege is a test of patience as much as courage, a contest of labor as much as blood. When a walled city resists Rome, the legion does not simply turn away. Walls, however tall, are obstacles to be broken. The order comes down, and the soldiers begin the work that will last not for hours but for weeks, even months. The first task is to surround the city. Camps are laid out in a great ring, ditches dug, palisades raised, towers built to watch the walls. The city is trapped within an iron circle, its gates sealed, its lifelines cut. Each day brings the same rhythm. At dawn, horns sound, not for the charge, but for labor. Soldiers lift picks and shovels, axes and saws. They dig trenches closer to the city walls, building covered approaches shielded with rawhide against arrows and stones. They fell trees, shaping timber into beams, wheels, and frames. Smoke from the forges curls upward as smiths hammer iron into nails, bolts, and fittings. The siege is a construction site as much as a battlefield, a place where sweat falls more often than blood. Siege engines rise slowly, towering over the landscape. Wooden towers are built, story upon story, wheels as tall as a man fixed beneath them. Catapults, the great torsion engines, are wound with twisted sinew, their arms ready to hurl stones heavier than a soldier. Ballistae, giant crossbows of wood and iron, stand poised to launch bolts that can pierce shields and bodies in a single stroke. Rams are fashioned, thick beams capped with iron heads, suspended beneath protective sheds. Each machine creaks with the labor of hundreds, the sound of timber groaning like some vast beast stirring to life. The defenders do not remain idle. From the walls, arrows rain down, stones crash into the works, pots of fire tumble to ignite wood and flesh. Shouts echo across the space between, curses, jeers, taunts meant to rattle courage. Sometimes they launch their own missiles, sometimes they sally forth in sudden charges, trying to burn the engines before they are ready. For the Legionary, every task carries danger. To dig is to risk an arrow. To hammer is to invite a stone. The line between laborer and target is thin. Yet Rome endures through patience and numbers. Each loss is mourned, but the work continues. Where a wall is repaired, another ram is built. Where fire consumes one tower, another rises. Slowly, steadily, the circle tightens, the engines creep closer, the defenders grow weaker. Inside the city, food dwindles, water runs low, fear gnaws. Time itself becomes Rome's ally, for hunger can do what swords cannot. When the day of assault comes, it begins with thunder. Stones crash into the walls, shaking the earth. Bolts whistle through the air, striking down defenders who dare to show themselves. The towers roll forward, their wheels groaning, their heights bristling with archers who rain arrows down from above. Rams swing back and forth, iron heads smashing into gates, each blow a drumbeat of destruction. The Legionary advances behind mantlets, heavy wooden screens, pushing steadily toward the breach. The air is thick with smoke, with dust, with the screams of the wounded. Arrows clatter against shields, stones smash against helmets, yet the line moves forward, step by step. At the command, pila are hurled upward, striking defenders on the walls, clearing space for the engines to grind closer. And then, the breach. A section of wall collapses with a roar, stone tumbling in a cloud of dust. Horns sound, voices rise, and the legion surges forward. Climbing over rubble, shields raised, swords ready, they pour into the gap. Fighting is brutal, close, every street a battlefield, every doorway a trap. The defenders fight with desperation, for behind them lies only surrender or death. Yet Rome presses inexorably, line after line, shield after shield, the machine of war rolling forward until resistance falters. When the gates finally fall, when the last defenders break or are cut down, the city is Rome's. Trumpets blare, standards are raised high, the eagle gleaming against smoke and fire. For the Legionary, exhaustion mingles with grim triumph. His arms ache from swinging sword and shovel alike, his body bears the bruises of labor and the cuts of combat. But the work is done. The siege has ended. The aftermath is harsh. The city may be spared or sacked, depending on orders. Sometimes the citizens are enslaved, their wealth taken, their temples stripped. Sometimes clemency is granted, the city absorbed into Rome's vast order. For the soldier, these decisions are distant. His concern is the coin he may earn, the loot he may take, the survival of his comrades. The politics of empire matter little when the taste of dust and blood still lingers in his mouth. At night, when the fires burn low and the engines stand silent, the Legionary reflects on the siege. He remembers the endless digging, the weight of timber, the roar of collapsing stone. He knows that tomorrow may bring another city, another wall, another circle of iron drawn tight. The siege is not an exception but a part of his life, as natural as the march or the camp. For Rome, walls are never permanent. Every fortress can fall, every city can be broken, every resistance can be worn down. The legionary knows this, for he has been the hand that builds, the shoulder that pushes, the arm that strikes. He is part of the siege engine itself, not only the machines of wood and iron, but the machine of Rome, grinding forward until nothing stands against it. Part 10. Wounds and Recovery. No legionary passes through campaigns unscarred. Even when fortune spares a man's life, the body carries marks of service, cuts across the arms, bruises that spread purple and yellow, burns from fire and oil, joints swollen from long marches. For many, wounds are not rare events but a constant companion, reminders of the fragile line between survival and death. When battle ends and the field falls silent, the cries of the wounded rise. They echo sharper than the clash of steel, carrying pain that no horn can drown. Soldiers stumble back to camp with blood seeping through bandages of torn cloth, with arrows lodged in shoulders, with gashes across thighs. Some lean heavily on comrades, supported by arms thrown across shoulders. Others crawl, dragging themselves through dust, refusing to be left behind. The strongest carry the weakest, but not all make it to safety. In the camp, the medics, the medici, wait. They are not physicians in the polished halls of Rome, but soldiers trained in the craft of survival. Their tents are simple, their tools basic, but their work is vital. Knives, saws, clamps, and cauterizing irons are laid out on rough tables, gleaming dully in the torchlight. Water boils over fires to clean wounds, though infection is an enemy they cannot always defeat. The treatment is harsh. An arrow must be cut out, the flesh around it widened by knife before the shaft is pulled free. A wound must be cauterized, seared shut by hot iron pressed against raw flesh, the stench of burning skin thick in the air. Limbs shattered beyond repair may be taken off with saw and steady hand, while comrades hold the screaming man down. The medicines are few: honey for its cleansing, vinegar to wash, wine to numb, herbs to dull the edge of agony. But more often, pain is endured without relief. Yet for all the brutality, men survive. Scars knit across arms and faces, bones mend slowly, bodies adapt. A soldier may return to the line bearing marks that never fade, but he returns nonetheless. In the Legion, a scar is not shame but proof, a story written in flesh that he has faced what others have not. Among comrades, scars are compared like trophies, each one a chapter in the life of the soldier. Recovery is not only of the body. The mind too bears wounds. Night after night, dreams return of battle, the flash of blades, the cries of the dying, the sight of comrades falling. Some men wake shouting, drenched in sweat, hands clutching for weapons not there. Others grow quiet, withdrawing into silence, carrying their memories like hidden weights. There is little room for weakness in the ranks, so these wounds are spoken of rarely, but they are no less real. Time itself becomes a medicine. Marches continue, drills return, duties press upon the soldiers. Routine steadies the mind, labor distracts from memory, comradeship binds the cracks. A jest shared around the fire, a song hummed on the road, a hand clasped on the shoulder. These small acts help heal what iron cannot. Still, not all recover fully. Some limp for the rest of their days, never marching as swiftly again. Some carry arms that will never lift shields as high, eyes that will never see as clearly. Others never return to battle, left behind in garrisons or discharged with pensions too small for comfort. Yet even in their brokenness, they remain part of Rome's machine, their service acknowledged in scars that speak louder than words. For those who survive long enough, wounds become markers of time. A cut across the hand recalls a battle in Gaul. A missing tooth remembers a stone thrown from the walls of a besieged city. A limp speaks of a spear wound taken in Germania. The body becomes a map, charting the endless road of the legionary's life. When a soldier sits by the fire in later years, he may run his fingers over those scars, remembering the moments when life could have ended but did not. He remembers the heat of cauterizing iron, the steady hands of comrades who held him down, the voice of the medic murmuring that he would live. Pain fades, but memory remains, stitched into the flesh. The legionary learns that survival is not the absence of wounds but the endurance of them. To be whole is rare, to be scarred is normal. What matters is not that the body breaks, but that it rises again, strapped once more into armor, shield lifted, sword ready. For Rome demands not perfection, but endurance. And so, when the horn sounds again and the march begins, the wounded rise with the rest. Bandages still cling to their flesh, joints ache, scars pull tight, but they shoulder their packs and step forward. The legion does not wait, and the soldier does not ask it to. He has been wounded, he has been broken, but he has also been remade. In the life of a Roman legionary, wounds are inevitable. Recovery is uncertain. Endurance is everything. Part 11. Brotherhood and Rivalry. A legionary's life is not lived alone. From the moment he takes the oath, he is bound to others, men who march at his side, who eat from the same pot, who raise the same walls of camp, who lock shields beside him in the storm of battle. Rome may demand loyalty to the empire, to the eagle, to distant commanders, but in truth, a soldier's heart clings most tightly to the men with whom he shares his daily bread. The smallest unit of this brotherhood is the contubernium, a group of 8 men who share a single tent. Inside their cramped leather shelter, every sound, every smell, every habit becomes familiar. One man snores like thunder, another mumbles in his sleep, another sharpens his blade endlessly, the rasp of whetstone cutting the silence. They quarrel over space, over whose cloak lies where, over who snores the loudest or who ate more than his share of the rations. Yet when the horn sounds and the shield wall forms, they stand as one, each man knowing that his survival depends on the others. These small bonds deepen with every march and every hardship. When sandals wear through and nails cut into bleeding feet, it is a comrade who lends spare leather or who helps stitch straps by firelight. When a man stumbles beneath the weight of his pack, it is his tentmate who helps hoist the burden for a time. When fever strikes or wounds fester, comrades sit close, fetching water, adjusting bandages, whispering reassurance through the long hours of night. The legion teaches that Rome is eternal, but the soldier learns that it is his brothers who keep him alive. Laughter too has its place. Dice rattle on wooden boards, knucklebones clatter in the dirt, and men wager coins, rations, or favors on the throw. Songs rise after meals, some crude, some old and solemn, carrying accents from every corner of the empire. Stories are told and retold, of hunts in far-off forests, of markets crowded with traders, of women loved and left behind. Around the fire, the hardships of the day soften into memory, and even the harshest soldier cracks a smile when a joke cuts through the gloom. But where men live so closely, rivalries spark as surely as bonds. Pride flares quickly, especially among young recruits eager to prove themselves. Insults traded in jest sometimes harden into grudges. A careless word about a man's home, a joke about his courage, a dispute over gambling debts, all can ignite into fists thrown or knives drawn. The Centurions stamp such conflicts down harshly, for the legion cannot afford enmity in its ranks. Punishments fall on both offender and victim, driving home the truth that disorder is everyone's enemy. Still, beneath the surface, tensions linger. The Legion draws men from across the Empire: Italians, Gauls, Spaniards, Africans, Greeks, Syrians. Each carries his own tongue, his own customs, his own pride. Rome makes them soldiers, but it does not erase the differences. A Gaul may laugh at the accent of a Syrian, a Spaniard may boast that his people are fiercer fighters, an Italian may sneer at provincials. These rivalries simmer, sometimes breaking into open scuffles, yet just as often transforming into fierce loyalty. For in battle, when arrows fall and swords flash, those same men stand shoulder to shoulder, their differences vanishing in the face of shared survival. The deepest bond is formed not in laughter or quarrel but in blood. When a man saves another, raising his shield to catch the arrow, dragging him from the mud of the battlefield, carrying him wounded to safety, that debt is never forgotten. Lives become intertwined in ways no oath could enforce. A soldier may forget the face of a commander seen only from afar, but he will never forget the man who pulled him from beneath a falling wall or who struck down the enemy poised to kill him. These moments forge bonds that last longer than campaigns, longer even than the Legion itself. Rivalries, too, can harden in blood. If a man falters in battle, if he leaves a gap in the line that endangers his comrades, if his hesitation brings harm, the others do not forget. Even if the Centurion's punishment falls swiftly, the scar of mistrust remains. A soldier may fight beside such a man again, but he will never fully trust him. In the close-knit world of the Legion, reputation spreads quickly, and once lost, it is nearly impossible to regain. Camaraderie softens the brutal life, but it does not erase its hardships. The laughter around the fire cannot always silence the memory of screams on the battlefield. Rivalries kept in check by discipline still burn in quiet glances. Yet through it all, the Legion holds together, not as a perfect brotherhood free of conflict, but as a family bound by necessity. Just as brothers in blood quarrel fiercely yet defend one another against outsiders, so too do legionaries fight, curse, and forgive, knowing that beyond the camp's walls lies a world eager to destroy them. The years etch these bonds deeper. Men who once mistrusted one another grow into friends who can read each other's thoughts with a glance. Rivals who once traded blows become comrades who fight as if tied by rope. Loss strengthens the ties that remain. The death of one soldier binds the survivors closer, as if the departed still lives in their shared memory. And when a legionary's service finally ends, when he receives his land grant and returns to fields far from the march, it is not the sight of generals or senators that he recalls most sharply. It is the faces of those who shared his tent, the sound of dice rattling in the dark, the smell of smoke curling over bread cooked on shared fires. Brotherhood and rivalry alike weave the fabric of his years, leaving him with scars not only on his flesh but in his heart. For Rome may have conquered the world with legions, but it was men, bound together in tents of 8, in ranks of 80, in cohorts of hundreds, who gave Rome its strength. And within those men, friendship and rivalry marched side by side, shaping every step of the legionary's life. Part 12. Life Beyond the Battlefield. The legionary's life is not only battle. Much of his service passes in places where swords remain sheathed, where shields rest stacked against tent walls, and where the work of empire continues without the clash of steel. For Rome does not conquer simply to destroy. It conquers to rule, to bind far lands into its order, to spread its roads, its laws, its cities. And in this quieter labor, the legionary remains essential. When a province is pacified and open war fades, the soldiers do not simply return home. They stay, garrisoning forts, guarding roads, watching borders where unrest still simmers. Towers rise on hills, their wooden beams lashed together, their tops manned day and night by legionaries scanning the horizon. Forts stand at river crossings, at mountain passes, at the edges of deserts, each one a reminder that Rome's reach does not falter. A legionary may spend months or years in such places, his daily routine one of watch and patrol, his eyes fixed on lands that are quiet but never fully tame. Guard duty is wearying work. Hours pass slowly as soldiers stand upon walls or march in circuits, scanning for signs of raiders or rebels. In the stillness, the mind drifts, to memories of battle, to thoughts of home, to daydreams of what might lie beyond the next horizon. Yet even in monotony, discipline endures. Every shift is taken seriously, for one careless watch could invite disaster. Between patrols, the legionary becomes a builder. Rome is not content to leave provinces wild. Roads are carved through forests, laid straight as if drawn by the hand of a god. Bridges span rivers that once divided peoples, their stones locked so tightly that water rushes harmlessly beneath. Aqueducts stretch across valleys, carrying life-giving water to cities that rise in Rome's image. Fortified camps harden into permanent forts, with stone walls replacing ditches, with barracks and storehouses replacing tents. Wherever the legion marches, the mark of Rome follows, etched into the land itself. The work is grueling. Stones must be cut, timber felled, earth moved by the ton. Soldiers labor with spades and axes as often as with swords. Yet there is pride in such labor. A man may point to a road and say he laid the stones that carry merchants and messengers. He may stand beneath an aqueduct and know that his sweat helped shape the channel through which water flows. The legion builds not only for war, but for civilization. Beyond construction, the soldiers serve as enforcers of Roman order. They escort tax collectors, ensuring that coin flows steadily into imperial coffers. They guard caravans, protecting merchants from bandits who still stalk the roads. They quell uprisings, moving swiftly to crush villages that defy Roman law. Sometimes their presence is welcomed, bringing security and trade. Other times, it is resented, their boots and shields a constant reminder of conquest. A legionary learns to expect both gratitude and hostility, sometimes in the same day. Life among civilians offers glimpses of another world. In towns near their garrisons, soldiers mingle with locals, visiting markets, taverns, and baths. Friendships form across the lines of culture, as do rivalries. Some soldiers take wives or companions from local families, building households in provinces far from their birth. Children are born who speak Latin and the tongue of their mothers, bridges between Rome and the conquered. Though official marriage for soldiers may be restricted, unions flourish nonetheless, shaping new communities that mix Roman and provincial blood. Religion also spreads through the soldiers. Shrines to Jupiter, Mars, and Mithras rise beside native temples, symbols of Rome planted in foreign soil. Legionaries adopt local gods as well, carrying amulets or offering prayers to deities they had never known before. In this mingling, Rome absorbs and is absorbed, the lines between conqueror and conquered slowly blurring. Yet beneath these softer layers, the hardness of military life remains. Discipline does not fade simply because swords are sheathed. Drills continue, weapons are polished, armor is maintained. Centurions ensure that the men remain sharp, for peace is always temporary. One uprising, one raid, one command from Rome can hurl a garrison back into war. And so, even while building bridges or guarding roads, the legionary keeps his shield near, his sword ready. The seasons turn, and the years stretch. Life in a garrison is marked not by great battles but by the small cycles of daily duty. Dawn horns, watch rotations, labor in sun or rain, meals of grain and bread, evenings of dice and laughter. It is a quieter rhythm, but no less demanding. The body hardens under the weight of tools as much as weapons. The mind adapts to the stillness as much as to the storm. For some soldiers, these years bring relief. After the terror of battlefields, the steady routine of guard duty feels like a reprieve. They find comfort in markets, in familiar faces, in the slow building of homes and relationships. For others, the monotony grates. They long for the fire of combat, for the chance to win glory, for the rush of blood and triumph. To such men, garrison life feels like a slow suffocation. But whether embraced or resented, these duties shape the legionary as surely as battle. He becomes more than a fighter. He becomes a builder, a guard, a symbol of Rome's permanence. His presence tells the world that conquest is not fleeting, that Rome does not merely win wars. It stays, it rules, it reshapes. And when the order finally comes to march again, when horns sound and camps are struck, the legionary shoulders his pack and steps onto roads he himself may have laid. Behind him stand forts he helped build, bridges he helped raise, communities changed by his presence. Ahead lies new land, new labor, new battle. His life flows in cycles of conquest and settlement, of war and peace, each shaping him in turn. For the soldier of Rome, life beyond the battlefield is not an escape from war but another face of it. The empire demands not only the clash of steel but the steady weight of order pressed upon the world. And so, the legionary endures, carrying Rome not only on his shield but in the stones he sets, the roads he guards, and the lives he touches. Part 13. The Promise of Rome. A legionary does not endure endless marches, brutal training, and the terror of battle without a vision of reward. Rome demands much of its soldiers, but it also offers promises. Promises of coin, of land, of honor, of a life beyond the hardships of the camp. These promises are the thread that keeps men tied to their service, year after year, campaign after campaign, even as their bodies grow weary and their scars multiply. The first and most immediate reward is pay. Each soldier receives a stipend, a steady stream of denarii that arrives 3 times a year. To the poor farmer who once worked the fields for uncertain harvests, this pay is wealth. It buys wine, dice, trinkets from merchants who trail the legions, small comforts that soften the hardness of the march. It can be sent home, carried by couriers to families waiting in distant villages, coins clinking into the hands of mothers, wives, and children who live better because one man has taken the oath. Yet the pay is never fully the soldier's own. Deductions are taken for food, for equipment, for clothing. The legion feeds and arms its men, but the cost is carved from their earnings. A soldier learns quickly that the stipend is steady but never generous. To supplement it, he relies on spoils of war. When cities fall and enemies are defeated, loot is divided. Silver vessels, bronze armor, captured weapons, livestock, slaves, all flow into the hands of Rome's soldiers. The division is rarely equal, with commanders and officers claiming the lion's share, but even the common legionary may find his purse heavy after a victory. Beyond coin lies the promise of land. Upon completing years of service, often 20 or more, a soldier is granted a plot, either in Italy or in the provinces. For many, this is the greatest reward of all. Land means stability, independence, the chance to raise crops and cattle without fear of hunger. For provincials who served in auxiliary units, the prize is greater still: land and Roman citizenship, a status that opens doors once closed, that allows sons to rise higher than their fathers. This vision of retirement sustains men through long campaigns. In the cold of Germania, in the dust of Africa, in the heat of Syria, soldiers speak of the farms they will one day tend, of vineyards they will plant, of houses they will build with their own hands. Around fires at night, They dream aloud of wives and children who will never know hunger, of fields where no centurion's shout will ever be heard. Some even mark small wooden tablets, counting the years until freedom. Honor, too, is a reward. Though many men enter the Legion out of poverty or desperation, service itself carries pride. To wear the armor, to march beneath the eagle, to call oneself a soldier of Rome, these are honors that elevate even the humblest. Victories are celebrated in triumphs, processions through cities where soldiers march in shining armor, cheered by crowds, their names carried home in songs and stories. Medals and decorations, fallery, armilli, and torques, are awarded for valor, worn proudly on parade, symbols of courage that mark one man above his fellows. For some, the promise of advancement burns brightest. A common soldier may rise through merit, promoted to optio, then to Centurion, perhaps even beyond. The path is narrow, but it exists, and the army offers a chance to men who in civilian life would remain forever bound to their birth. Ambition, no less than duty, drives many to endure. And yet, the promise is never guaranteed. Pay can be delayed, land grants contested, rewards withheld. Mutinies have erupted when soldiers felt betrayed, when the promises of Rome proved slow or false. Men have marched on Rome itself, demanding what was owed, reminding emperors that the strength of their throne rested on the loyalty of those in armor. These eruptions are rare, but they reveal the fragile balance between demand and reward. A legionary may endure much, but he endures it in expectation of Rome's word being kept. For the individual soldier, the promise of Rome is both anchor and horizon. It steadies him in the worst of times, reminding him that his suffering is not endless, that his service leads to something more. It gives him purpose beyond the march and the battle, a dream of life lived in peace, of fields plowed by his own hand, of nights spent not in tents but beneath the roof of his own home. When retirement finally comes, it is a moment of transformation. The soldier who once carried 40 kilograms on his back now carries tools for farming. The hands once calloused by sword and shield now grip plows and sickles. The voice once shouting in unison with comrades now calls across quiet fields to children at play. Some settle in colonies founded for veterans, whole communities of former soldiers who build towns together, their streets laid out as orderly as camps. Others return to villages long left behind, greeted as men changed, older, scarred, but carrying the pride of service. And yet, even in retirement, the Legion never fully leaves him. Scars ache in the cold, memories return at night, the rhythm of marching feet echoes faintly in his dreams. When he looks across his land, he knows it was bought not only with his labor but with years of loyalty, with the lives of comrades who did not return. The promise of Rome has been fulfilled, but it carries with it the weight of remembrance. For every legionary, whether still marching or long retired, the promise of Rome is more than reward. It is the thread that binds service to meaning, that gives shape to sacrifice. Without it, the burden would be unbearable. With it, men endure the hardest of roads, the bloodiest of fields, the longest of years. Part 14. The Long March Home. The years pass, and the weight of service presses heavier with each campaign. The young recruit who once stumbled beneath his pack has become an older man, hardened by the road yet worn by it as well. His shoulders are broad, his arms thick with muscle, but his knees ache when the march stretches long, and his back stiffens when the nights grow cold. Time has carved lines into his face, has salted his hair with grey, has marked him as one who has given years to Rome. The Legion does not pause for age. Orders are orders, whether shouted at a youth of 20 or a veteran of 40. The pack still weighs the same, the armor still bites into shoulders, the march still stretches mile after mile. Yet the older soldier feels every stone beneath his sandals, every incline in the road, every gust of winter wind. He endures, not because it is easier now, but because habit and duty have fused into his bones. Around him, comrades change. The faces he once knew have thinned. Some fell in battle, their names remembered only in whispers. Others, wounded beyond return, were left behind in garrisons or sent home with pensions too small for comfort. New recruits fill the ranks, their eyes wide, their bodies unscarred, their laughter loud with youth. The veteran sees himself in them, recalls the days when he too marched with eagerness rather than endurance. He offers advice, gruff and brief, for he knows that words cannot replace experience. Still, he watches over them, as older soldiers have always watched over the young. The march homeward, if such a thing can ever be called homeward, carries its own weight. Campaigns wind down, provinces are secured, orders shift from advance to withdrawal. The Legion turns its face not toward conquest but toward settlement, toward garrisons, toward disbandment. For the veteran, these are bittersweet steps. Each mile brings him closer to release, closer to the land promised, closer to a life beyond the camp. Yet each mile also carries him farther from the only life he has known for decades. The road itself is a mirror of his years. He passes towns where once he marched as a recruit, their markets now bustling with Roman merchants, their temples rebuilt in the empire's style. He crosses bridges he helped to raise, their stones still strong, their arches still carrying the weight of men and carts. He sees colonies where retired soldiers already plough fields, their children running through streets laid out as neatly as camps. The land bears the mark of Rome, and in that mark, he sees his own life's labor written. But the march is not only through places changed by Rome. It is also through memories. Each valley recalls a battle fought, each hill a camp raised, each river a crossing made in haste or fear. Ghosts walk with the veteran, comrades long fallen, their laughter and voices echoing faintly in his mind. He remembers the young man he once was, standing nervously in the square, raising his hand in oath, feeling the first weight of armor. He remembers the first battle, the first wound, the first time he carried a comrade from the field. The march home is also a march through memory, each step carrying both pride and sorrow. At night, as the camp rises once more, he feels the difference most keenly. The leather tent is the same, the fires burn as they always have, the dice rattle as they always do. Yet for him, the noise of youth feels distant, as though he sits slightly apart, already half gone from this life. He sharpens his blade less often, for he knows he will not carry it much longer. He listens more than he speaks, content to let the younger men fill the night with laughter. His eyes linger on the eagle standard, gleaming in firelight, and he feels the weight of years spent beneath its shadow. The body reminds him that time is short. Old wounds ache in the cold. Scars pull tight across weathered flesh. His stride is slower, though pride keeps him from falling behind. He knows that one day soon he will lay down his armor, not in defeat, but in release. The promise of Rome waits, land, coin, the chance to live as more than a soldier. Yet the thought of leaving the Legion behind carries its own ache. 4 decades, his life has been bound to others, his days shaped by horns and commands, his nights by tents and fires. To live outside that rhythm feels almost unthinkable. Still, hope stirs. He imagines fields stretching wide beneath the sun, the quiet sound of ploughs cutting earth, the laughter of children chasing one another between rows of vines. He imagines a home built with his own hands, sturdy walls, a hearth that burns each night. He imagines rest, true rest, where no horn calls him at dawn, where no centurion's staff cracks against his back, where no march stretches endlessly before him. The dream of peace, carried for so many years, grows brighter as the road shortens. And yet, even as he dreams, He knows the Legion will never leave him. The discipline drilled into him will shape his every step. He will wake at dawn, even without the horn. He will stack tools neatly, sharpen blades that may never be drawn. He will feel unease at disorder, at silence, at the absence of comrades near. The Legion has carved itself into his soul, and though he may set aside the armor, he cannot set aside the man it made him. The long march home is not an end but a turning. For some, it leads to farms and families, to a life lived in quiet dignity. For others, it leads to further service, for Rome often calls veterans to train new recruits, to serve as guards, to lend their hard-won strength to younger men. For all, it carries the weight of years given to empire, of blood spilled on foreign soil, of loyalty kept to the end. When the veteran finally steps onto the land granted him, when he feels the soil beneath his feet not as a road to march but as earth to till, he knows that the promise has been fulfilled. Yet he also knows that every furrow cut, every vine planted, every wall raised rests on a foundation of years carried in armor, of roads marched until sandals split, of comrades remembered with aching heart. The march home is long, but it is also final. A legionary lays down his pack, his shield, his sword. He takes up the tools of peace. And though he may no longer walk beneath the eagle, the shadow of Rome still stretches across his life, written in scars, in memory, in the discipline that will never fade. Part 15. Legacy of the Legion. The legionary's life, with all its burdens, its wounds, its weary marches and hard-won triumphs, does not end with the man himself. Each soldier's service, however humble it may seem, feeds into something greater. The legacy of Rome, carved across continents, enduring long after his bones have turned to dust.
When a veteran sets aside his armor and plows his first furrow in quiet fields, he may think his years of service are finished. Yet the mark of the Legion remains upon him, and through him upon the world. His land grant creates farms that spread Rome's presence deeper into provinces. His children grow up with Latin on their tongues, Roman law shaping their lives. Even in retirement, the soldier is still a piece of Rome's expansion, his life flowing outward into the empire like ripples across water.
But the legacy is not only personal. It is structural, immense, enduring. The roads he marched remain, straight and unyielding, carrying merchants and messengers long after legions have moved on. The forts he helped to build rise into towns, their wooden palisades replaced by stone, their barracks transformed into houses. The aqueducts he labored to raise still pour water into cities, sustaining lives that may never know his name. Every ditch dug, every stake driven, every stone carried becomes part of Rome's bones, woven into the landscape itself. The discipline drilled into him, the order that shaped his days, becomes the standard by which others measure themselves. Even enemies who once cursed Rome learn from it, adopting tactics, formations, and structures first forged in the heat of legionary life. Centuries later, long after the eagles have fallen, the very memory of Rome's armies inspires kings and emperors, who dream of molding their soldiers into legions as unyielding as those that once marched across the world. The legacy is also carried in memory, in songs sung by civilians who watched legions pass, in stories told by children who saw standards gleam in the sun, in the all left behind in those who lived beneath Rome's shadow. The legionary, though one among thousands, becomes part of a living myth. His presence assures the provinces that Rome is strong, that order will endure, that chaos will be crushed beneath hobnailed sandals. In his armor, in his shield, in his steady march, he embodies the empire itself. Yet the legacy is not only glory. It is also the weight of blood. Fields where he once fought remain scarred, their soil rich with the bones of the fallen. Towns once sacked carry memories of fire and loss. Families in distant lands remember not the order Rome brought, but the destruction it left. For every road raised, a village was broken. For every aqueduct built, a people was conquered. The legionary's life is bound to both creation and ruin, his legacy as double-edged as his gladius. In his own heart, the legacy is more intimate. When he sits in old age, his body stiff, his scars aching, he remembers faces more clearly than victories. The comrade who laughed beside him on long marches. The tent mate who fell in battle, shield slipping from his hand. The centurion whose voice steadied the line in the worst of storms. These memories are the soldier's true inheritance, not the marble monuments, not the triumphs carved in stone, but the lives bound together in the dust and blood of the legion. And yet, he knows he was part of something vast. He remembers standing in formation, the eagle raised high, the line stretching farther than sight, the earth trembling beneath thousands of synchronized steps. In those moments, he was not just himself. He was Rome, living and breathing in human form. That knowledge stays with him until his last breath, a quiet pride that, despite all hardship, he belonged to the greatest force his world had ever known. As he passes from life, his shield and sword may be laid beside him, or perhaps sold, or passed to a son. His body rests in earth, his name perhaps forgotten in a generation. But his service lingers, in the stones of roads, in the order of cities, in the very memory of Rome that will echo through centuries. His life becomes part of a collective story, the story of the legions, whose discipline, endurance, and reach carved an empire that defined an age. For those who come after, the question is often asked, what was it like to be a Roman legionary? The answer is not found only in battles won, nor in monuments raised. It is found in the rhythm of daily labor, in the weight of armor on weary shoulders, in the laughter shared around firelight, in the scars carried home after years of service. It is found in the balance between brotherhood and rivalry, between pride and suffering, between destruction and creation. To be a Roman legionary was to give one's life to something larger, to endure hardship not only for oneself but for an empire that stretched across seas and mountains. It was to march roads that would outlast one's bones, to raise walls that would guard generations unborn, to fight battles that would shape the fate of nations. It was to live always in the shadow of Rome, yet also to cast that shadow farther with each step. This is the legacy of the legionary, a life of burden, of endurance, of loyalty, leaving behind a world remade by his hands and his sacrifice. Rome rose on the shoulders of such men, and though their names are lost, their footsteps still echo in the stones, in the fields, in the memory of history. And so, our long journey with the Roman legionary comes to an end. From the moment he raised his hand to swear the oath, to the endless marches across stone roads, to the clash of steel in the press of battle, we have walked beside him. We have seen his scars, his laughter, his rivalries, and his hopes. We have followed him all the way to retirement, where the weight of Rome finally slipped from his shoulders, yet never left his heart. His story reminds us that history is not only the tale of emperors and generals, but of ordinary men whose endurance built the empire step by step, stone by stone, mile by mile. Though their names are forgotten, their legacy still lingers in the roads, the ruins, and the memory of Rome itself. Thank you for sharing this journey. If you found peace in this story, I invite you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments what story you would like to hear next. Your support helps us bring more of these quiet explorations of history to life. Until then, rest well, dream deeply, and remember, the past is never far away. It lives within us, waiting to be heard again. Good night.